What if I told you that some of the facts we were taught about ancient civilizations were never true to begin with? Not exaggerated, not misunderstood, flat out wrong. From movies, textbooks, and pop culture, entire stories were built on myths disguised as history. And today you're going to see the proof that flips them upside down. By the end of this video, you will question how much of what we call history was actually just a story someone wanted you to believe. Before we get into the lies, here's a quick favor. If you love uncovering secrets the history books skipped, hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's start with one of the biggest historical lies ever told. For decades, people believed the pyramids were built by slaves suffering under the whip of cruel pharaohs. Movies showed chains, starvation, and misery. Even some textbooks repeated it. But here's the truth. Archaeologists have discovered village remains where pyramid workers actually lived. They weren't chained prisoners, they were skilled laborers paid in bread, beer, and cattle. Their tombs were found near the pyramids, something no ruler would allow for slaves. Their bones show injuries from heavy labor, but also signs of medical treatment, healed fractures, and decent food. Records indicate teams of craftsmen, engineers, bakers, brewers, and masons organized like professional crews. Ancient Egyptians believed building monuments for their king helped earn favor in the afterlife. That means many of these workers likely did it willingly, even proudly. The lie that slaves built the pyramids wasn't based on evidence, but on assumptions made by foreign historians thousands of years later. Now let's move to the Vikings, another civilization whose image was reshaped by imagination. Pop culture paints them as filthy, unwashed savages, wearing horned helmets and pillaging everything in sight. But when archaeologists dug up Viking settlements in Scandinavia and England, they found grooming tools like razors, combs, tweezers, and ear cleaners. Written records from England describe the Vikings as cleaner than the locals, and note that Viking men bathed weekly, something many Europeans at that time did only a few times a year. And the famous horned helmet, completely invented in the 1800s by costume designers for an opera. Not a single archaeological discovery has revealed a Viking helmet with horns. Their real helmets were simple iron caps built for battle efficiency. So why the myth? Because it made them look more barbaric, dramatic, and easy to demonize. The horned helmet lie became so popular that even people who study history still picture it first. Now let's talk about an island that Hollywood nearly turned into the end of the world. Easter Island was long used as the ultimate example of a civilization destroying itself. You've heard the story. The people cut down all their trees, ruined the ecosystem, and caused their own collapse. But the latest research paints a very different picture. Evidence now shows the Rapa Nui people practiced sustainable farming using rock gardens that protected plants from wind and poor soil. The legend that they ran out of resources is exaggerated. What really devastated the population was something that didn't come from the island at all: European contact. Disease, slave raids, and forced relocation nearly wiped them out in the 1800s. But the myth of self-destruction became a tidy moral story that historians repeated for years. The truth is that Easter Island is not a warning about stupidity. It's a story of survival under invasion. Next, let's take on one of the most misleading legends about warriors in history. Many people believe that Spartan soldiers were unstoppable superhumans, raised from birth to never fear death. Movies show them as shirtless fighters who were unbeatable. But the truth? Most Spartan men weren't constantly at war. They trained, yes, but they also farmed, hunted, and governed. Their famous perfect warrior society depended heavily on the labor of an oppressed population called the Helots. And that heroic last stand at Thermopylae? What most people forget is that thousands of allies fought alongside the Spartans. They were not 300 alone. And contrary to the myth, they didn't fight for freedom. They fought to protect their influence in Greece. Spartan boys didn't just train with spears. They were also taught music, dance, and poetry. The legend of Spartans as pure soldiers was shaped centuries later by writers who loved heroic tales. Now let's head to Rome, where another brutal myth refuses to die. Gladiators are often shown as slaves forced to fight to the death for entertainment. While some were enslaved and many came from conquered lands, not all gladiators were victims. Some actually volunteered. Why? Because successful gladiators could earn fame, wealth, and even freedom, and the fights themselves were rarely to the death. These were expensive athletes trained in specialized schools. Owners didn't want to lose profit by having them die constantly. Medical tools have been found in gladiator barracks, along with diets optimized for muscle recovery. Inscriptions show contracts and prize winnings. Some gladiators became celebrities with fans, admirers, and sponsorships. The arena was violent, yes, but not the endless bloodbath movies suggest. Now let us expose a myth so widespread that many still argue it online, that people in the Middle Ages believed the earth was flat. In reality, scholars in Europe, the Middle East, India, and Asia knew the earth was round for centuries. Ancient Greeks calculated its circumference more than 2,000 years ago. Medieval sailors used star positions to navigate based on a spherical earth. So where did the flat earth story come from? It was invented during the 1800s to make people of the past seem ignorant and to glorify the so-called Age of Enlightenment. Textbooks carried that false story for decades, even though historians and astronomers had always known better. Up next is a myth that turned Egyptian civilization into something far darker than it really was. Many believe ancient Egyptians worshipped hundreds of gods with bizarre rituals and constant sacrifices. While they had many deities, their spiritual practices were far more philosophical and symbolic than sensational. Animals like cats, ibises, and crocodiles were mummified not as random offerings, but as part of symbolic religious practices tied to temples. Egyptian religion focused on cosmic balance, ethical living, and preparation for the afterlife. Most sacrifices were small animals or food offerings, not humans, and Egyptian priests were not mysterious sorcerers. They were scholars, astronomers, and healers who influenced medicine and architecture. The idea that they endlessly performed sacrifices came from Greek writers who didn't fully understand their culture. Now, let's dismantle another repeating myth, that medieval Europeans never bathed and were constantly filthy. Archaeological digs of medieval towns have uncovered bathhouses, personal hygiene tools, and even soap remnants. In many cities, people bathed weekly and sometimes daily. Public bathhouses were common until outbreaks of plague made them risky. Cleanliness was often tied to religious practice. Wealthy nobles had private tubs and used herbal mixtures for fragrance. The myth that medieval people were dirty came later, pushed during times when foreign cultures were mocked or belittled. One of the strangest myths relates to Stonehenge. Many people once believed it was built entirely by Celtic Druids thousands of years ago. But Stonehenge is older than the Druids by over 1,000 years. It was built in stages, starting around 3000 BCE, long before Celtic culture even existed in Britain. Modern dating techniques and excavation show that ancient farmers and builders constructed it using stone tools, animal power, and wooden sleds. The Druids may have visited the site later, but they didn't build it. The myth started in the 17th century, when writers tried to link the monument to mysterious priests to make it sound more magical. Now here is one more lie that won to go away, that the Mayans predicted the end of the world in 2012. What actually ended was a calendar cycle called the Long Count, similar to how our calendars restart on January 1st. No Mayan text predicted apocalypse. Archaeologists have found inscriptions showing future dates far beyond 2012, but sensational news stories and amateur theories made the myth spread faster than the truth. So why were so many of these lies accepted for so long? Because dramatic stories are easier to remember than quiet facts. Myths make civilizations sound extreme, mysterious, or doomed. They travel faster than evidence. They turn cultures into characters instead of real people. But when archaeologists dig deeper, when linguists translate ancient records, and when scientists test bones and artifacts, the truth pushes through the cracks. Before we wrap this up, here is the real takeaway. The ancient world was not primitive or ridiculous. It was complex, organized, and often more advanced than we imagine. The lies we repeat come from centuries of exaggeration, misunderstanding, or propaganda. But now we have tools to expose what really happened. If you enjoyed tearing down false history and seeing the evidence behind real ancient life, stick around because more videos like this are coming. Let me know in the comments which lie shocked you the most. And if you want more truth that schools never mentioned, subscribe now. The past is full of secrets and we're just getting started.